I was only 7 years old when the world I knew crumbled in a single day. A morning that started like any other, but ended up marking me forever. The sound of the scream still echoes in my mind as if it happened yesterday. I didn't understand everything that was happening, but I knew something terrible was coming. I saw my mother, with a desperate look, telling me to run, to get away. While terror fell upon our plantation, my parents, my siblings, all taken, separated, ripped from me mercilessly. I, a child, saw my family being destroyed right before my eyes. Fear and pain were the first feelings I learned to carry that day. But in that moment of total devastation, something awakened inside me. Something I still didn't understand, but that would change my life forever. The fight for survival had begun, and I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew it would never be the same. Before everything happened, before I knew pain, there was an innocence in my life. It was a simple life, yes, but for me, it was the best life I could have. I didn't know what freedom was. I didn't know what the world outside was like, beyond those invisible boundaries that defined my existence. All I knew was the warmth of my mother hugging me before sleep, the laughter of my father when he told his stories, and the soft sound of her voice telling me every night, "Sleep well, my son. Tomorrow will be a new day." Those words, which today echo in my mind like a distant melody, were what kept me alive after everything I lost. I lived with a sense of security, even knowing that slavery was the only life we knew. The hard work, the long hours in the field, the constant exhaustion, all of that seemed to be part of our world. And yet, there were moments when I felt light. When the sun set and the night drew near, the smell of food being prepared by my mother filled the air, and for a moment, we could forget what awaited us the next day. The work was heavy, but the bond we had with each other, within those fences that kept us in prison, gave me something I would never let go of, a sense of belonging. My mother always made a point of teaching me that, despite everything, we should maintain our dignity. She didn't use fancy words, but her actions, the silent looks, and the small gestures of affection showed me that there was something more behind the pain we all experienced. She would tell me that we were more than just those at the mercy of the masters. "You are the child of strong people, my son," she would say. "No one can take that from you." At that moment, I believed what she told me. Hope wasn't just in the promise of freedom one day, but also in the small universe of love and care we shared between us. Far from the violence of the outside world, my father was a man of few words, but when he spoke, his words had a weight that made me feel safe. Even in the hardest hours, he never spoke directly about slavery, but his callous hands and signs of wear and tear were visible to all. He always tried to find some moment to teach me something new, some trick, some lesson I could carry with me into the future. Sometimes, while he worked in the field alongside other men, I would sit in the shade of a tree and watch him, admiring the way he never let pain take control of his spirit. He was strong, but he was also kind. That's what he taught me, inner strength at that time. My life was a routine marked by few words, but great meaning. I had no major concerns other than playing with the other boys, doing my little chores, and being with my mother, feeling the warmth of her hand on mine when we sat together at night after a long day of work. Gave me a sense of comfort I didn't understand, but that filled me entirely. The field, the hard work, the long hours of labor under the scorching sun, all of that was part of a life I knew, and that, although difficult, I accepted with a tranquility that only childhood could offer. I didn't know, but at that time, I was protected by the ignorance of true pain that was approaching me. I don't remember questioning why we were enslaved or where these invisible chains that bound us came from. I believe that, like any child, I simply accepted things as they were without seeking more answers. It was the only reality I knew. The few words of hope that my mother and father gave me were enough to keep me going, even when the work became unbearable. For me, the day was about living by their side and waiting for the moment when the stars would begin to shine in the sky. That moment, though small, was what gave me the strength to keep going. Then, one night, after a long day of work, while everyone was preparing to sleep, something happened that changed the way I saw the world. I didn't understand much at the time, but it was there, in the silence of the night, that I realized something was wrong. I felt a tension in the air, a strange stillness that hung over the plantation. It was as if something was about to happen, but I didn't know what it was. My mother, who was always calm, seemed more distant at that moment. She hugged me, and in a way I'll never forget, she looked me in the eyes and said, "My son, I don't know what awaits us tomorrow, but have faith. Never lose your faith, no matter what happens." I, a child of only 7 years, didn't understand the weight of those words, but I knew they came from a deep place, from someone who had seen much more than I had. She sensed, somehow, that this would be the last time we could be together like we were before. I slept that night with a strange feeling, a premonition I had never felt before. Those words from my mother, which seemed so simple and so full of love, stayed with me. I didn't know what was coming, but something inside me was preparing to face the unknown. Whatever it was, I already knew that from that moment on, my life would never be the same. That small universe of love, security, and hope was about to be destroyed, and I, unknowingly, was about to be thrown into an abyss that would change my life forever. The days following that night were heavy with a sense of unease. I couldn't explain it, but something in the air felt different. It wasn't just the silence that hung over our small world, but the way everyone moved faster, more quietly, as though they were anticipating something terrible. My mother was no longer the calm, reassuring presence I had always known. Her eyes, once full of warmth and affection, now seemed distant, like they were searching for something beyond the fields and the trees. I saw the way she looked over her shoulder when she thought no one was watching, the way her hands trembled when she prepared our meals. It was as though she knew something I didn't, something I wasn't ready to understand. One evening, just as the sun was setting, she called me to her side. There was a weight in the way she looked at me, a look I had never seen before. It was like she was trying to find the right words, but no words could ever be enough. "My son," she said, her voice low and steady, "I need you to listen carefully to me, because I'm not sure when I will be able to say this again." I could feel the seriousness in her voice, the heaviness of her words pressing down on me. I didn't understand why she was acting this way, but I could sense that whatever was coming, it was not something I would be able to ignore. "Life will never be the same," she continued, her eyes meeting mine with an intensity that sent a chill through me. "Tomorrow may bring things we cannot control, things that will change everything. You must be prepared, even though I don't know how to prepare you. Promise me, my son, that you will hold on to your strength. No matter what happens, remember who you are, and never forget the love we share." Her words were simple, but they carried a weight that I didn't fully comprehend. What was she saying? What did she mean by things we cannot control? It was as if she was trying to warn me of something so terrible, so incomprehensible, that even she didn't have the right words for it. I nodded, not fully understanding, but wanting to comfort her. I wanted to tell her I was strong, that I could face anything, but the fear in her eyes made me second guess myself. I will remember. Mama, I whispered, even though I wasn't sure what it was I was supposed to remember. I promise, she smiled softly. Though it didn't reach her eyes, I could see the fear hidden beneath her calm exterior, and it made me uneasy. That night, sleep didn't come easy. I tossed and turned, my mind racing with questions I couldn't answer. What was coming? Why was my mother so worried? The night felt long. The shadows outside seemed darker, more threatening than I had ever seen before. I lay awake, listening to the sounds of the other families preparing for bed, but there was no comfort in their familiar sounds. Everything felt off, like the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. I woke up early the next morning, before the sun had fully risen. The air was heavy with humidity, and the smell of the earth after the night's rain hung in the air. I could hear murmurs from the other workers as they made their way to the fields, but something in their voices, something in their hurried steps told me that today wasn't like any other day. My mother was already awake. I found her in the small cabin, her hands busy with something I couldn't see. She didn't look up when I entered, but I could feel the tension in the room, the quiet urgency in her movements. She was preparing for something, though I didn't know what. I wanted to ask her what was happening, but the words caught in my throat. Something inside me told me it wasn't time to ask. She finally turned to me, her face pale and drawn. "We must be careful today," she said, her voice low. "There are things happening that we can't change, things that are bigger than us. Stay close to me and do not wander. If you see anything that feels wrong, do not hesitate. Come straight to me." I nodded, though I didn't fully understand what she meant. All I knew was that I was scared. The morning felt different, charged with an energy I couldn't name. As the day wore on, I noticed the way people were looking over their shoulders, the way they hurried through their work, as if they were expecting something. The usual sounds of the plantation, laughter, chatter, the hum of the work were absent. It was as if the whole place was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. As the day wore on, the tension in the air grew thicker. There were whispers, hurried glances, and a palpable fear that hung over everything. My mother kept close to me, never letting me out of her sight, and as the evening approached, I saw the shadows gather, as if the night itself was drawing closer with a terrible purpose. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew deep down that whatever it was, it would change everything. I could feel it in my bones, that the world I had known, the world of love and safety my mother had created, was slipping away. The hope that had once felt so certain now seemed fragile, like the last breath before a storm, and I had no idea how to prepare for it. The moment everything changed, it came like a storm, without warning. 1 minute, I was with my family, working in the fields, just like any other day, and the next, I heard it, the sound of hooves pounding the earth, the distant cries, the thundering footsteps of men approaching. The fear that gripped my heart wasn't from the noise itself, but from the sudden silence that followed it. Everything stopped. The workers, the chatter, the songs, the world seemed to hold its breath. My mother's eyes locked with mine, and in that instant, I saw the terror that was written on her face, her body tense, her hand trembling as she reached for mine. She didn't have to say anything, because I could feel it. The danger was here, and it was real. The men came quickly, surrounding us, shouting orders. I tried to stay close to my mother, but it was as though the world was spinning, and I couldn't find my footing. I was just a child, lost in a world I didn't understand, caught in the crossfire of a violent system that didn't care for people like us. The men were armed, their faces cold and indifferent, as if our lives meant nothing. I heard them yelling at my father, the harsh commands, the sound of leather whips cracking in the air. My heart pounded in my chest. I could feel the heat of their anger, the weight of their power pressing down on us. My mother pulled me close, her arms around me, but even her warmth couldn't shield me from the horror that unfolded before my eyes. The cruelty was relentless. I saw my father strong, unwavering force to the ground. I saw my brothers, younger than me, being dragged away, their cries echoing in my ears. But it was my mother's scream that haunted me. It wasn't a cry of pain, but of loss. She screamed as they took her, as they ripped her away from me, her body torn from mine, like a piece of fabric being ripped apart. I could do nothing. I wanted to scream, to fight, but my legs wouldn't move. My body froze in fear, and all I could do was watch as my family was taken from me. And in that moment, I understood something I wasn't ready to understand. This was not a bad dream. This was my reality. The family I loved, the world I knew, was being torn apart before my eyes, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. They left me there, standing alone in the field, the screams of my family still echoing in my mind. I wanted to run after them, to scream for them to come back, but my feet were rooted to the ground. The pain was too great, the world was too cruel, and I was just a child. In those few moments, I lost everything. My mother, my father, my brothers, all taken, and I was left behind, alone, to face a world that had never cared for us. That was the day I learned what real fear was. It wasn't the fear of being punished or beaten. It was the fear of losing everything, the fear of being torn away from the people you love, and having no power to stop it. And in that moment, I promised myself something. I promised that no matter how broken I felt, no matter how empty I became, I would survive. I would fight for the memory of my family, for the love that had been stolen from me. I didn't know how, but I knew I would. I had to. I didn't have a choice. In the days that followed, I was left to wander in a world that had become a vast emptiness. The voices of my family, the warmth of their touch, the safety of their presence, all of it was gone. Just memories now, haunting shadows in a life that no longer felt real. I remember the first night after they took my mother. The silence was deafening. It was as if the entire world had gone mute. The usual sounds of the plantation, footsteps, whispers, even the hum of insects had all disappeared. All that remained was the crushing weight of loneliness pressing down on my chest. I didn't know where to go, what to do. I had no one left. I felt invisible, as if I had been erased from the world. I wandered the fields, not really knowing where I was going, just searching for something, anything, to make the pain stop. But there was nothing, no comfort, no solace, just an endless void. I tried to find the other children, the ones who had been taken from their families too. I thought maybe they would understand the emptiness I felt. Maybe they could offer me some sense of connection, some shared understanding of this nightmare. But when I found them, it was like they had already given up. Their faces were hollow, their eyes distant, like they had seen too much of the world's cruelty. They had stopped looking for hope. They had stopped dreaming, and I could see it in their eyes. They had already resigned themselves to the fact that they would never be whole again. It was a painful thing to realize, and it made me feel even more alone, as if I was the last one still holding on to the remnants of a life that no longer existed. I tried to call out to them, to ask them what I should do, but my words got caught in my throat. What could I say? How could I ask for help when I didn't even know how to help myself? The despair began to set in. It wasn't just the loss of my family, though that was enough to break me. It was the realization that I was completely alone in a world that didn't care. I had no family to protect me, no one to guide me through the pain. I was just a small boy, thrown into a world of violence and hatred, with no chance of escape. There were days when I didn't know if I would make it through. The hunger, the cold, the endless emptiness, it all seemed too much. I would lie in the grass at night, staring up at the stars, and wonder if my family was looking at the same sky. But no matter how hard I tried to hold on to those thoughts, they always slipped away. They were just dreams now, and dreams couldn't save me. The people around me were like ghosts. I would see them in the distance, their faces hard and cold, their bodies broken by years of suffering. They had learned to survive by shutting off their hearts, by burying their emotions deep inside. But I couldn't do that. I couldn't bury the love I had for my family, no matter how much it hurt. Every memory of them was a blade in my chest, and yet it was all I had left. I wanted to forget, to let go of the pain, but I couldn't. It was like a weight that had been placed on my soul, and it followed me everywhere I went. I couldn't run from it. I couldn't escape it. And so I just kept walking, one foot in front of the other, as if I could walk the pain away. But I never did. It was always there, lingering, waiting to remind me of what I had lost. I remember thinking, in those days of despair, that I might never feel happiness again. I didn't know how to survive in a world that seemed to take so much and give nothing in return. But something deep inside me refused to let go. Even in the darkest moments, when I felt like I was drowning in grief, there was a tiny spark that wouldn't go out. A flicker of hope, though faint, still burned within me. I didn't know why it was there. I didn't understand why. In the face of such overwhelming pain, I still held on to it, but I did. And that small spark would become the fuel for everything that came after. I had no idea how to survive. I was just a boy thrown into a world of endless grief, where hunger gnawed at my stomach and cold seeped into my bones. But somehow, I knew that I had to keep going. There was no other choice. As the days dragged on, I learned to adapt to the cruelty around me. It wasn't easy. Every step I took felt heavier than the last, each moment dragging me further into despair. But in that darkness, I started to notice something. The smallest things could make a difference. A piece of bread, a quiet moment in the shadows, a glance from another soul who had seen too much but still managed to survive. These things, so small, so fleeting, became my lifeline. In the mornings, I would search the fields for any scraps of food I could find. Sometimes, I would come across an abandoned piece of fruit or a small piece of stale bread left behind by the others. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me going for one more day, one more hour. Every time I found something to eat, it felt like a victory, and I held on to that feeling, clinging to it like a lifeline. In the nights, when the hunger became unbearable, I would hide in the shadows, hoping that no one would see me. I would curl up, my stomach aching, trying to sleep, but sleep was rare. The nightmares always came. The faces of my family, twisted in pain, their voices calling out to me, begging for help I couldn't give. And then the screams, the sounds of the men who had taken everything from me, laughing as they tore my world apart. But there was something else in the nightmares, too. A voice, a whisper, faint but persistent. It told me to keep going, to survive, no matter what. I didn't know who or what it was, but it was there, guiding me, telling me that I wasn't completely alone. The days blurred together, each one a struggle to stay alive, to find something, anything that could fill the emptiness inside. And then, one day, I stumbled across a group of others. At first, I thought they were like the rest, their faces hard, their hearts closed off to the world. But as I got closer, I saw something in their eyes that I hadn't seen in so long. Hope. It was faint, like the flicker of a candle struggling against the wind. But it was there. I approached them cautiously, not knowing if they would accept me, if they would see me as nothing more than another lost soul. But they didn't turn away. They took me in. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was not alone. There were others who understood. They had suffered like I had, lost like I had, but they had found a way to keep going. And they didn't just survive, they fought. They fought for their freedom, for their dignity, for the chance to live. They were not willing to let the cruelty of the world define them. And that was the first lesson I learned from them. Survival wasn't just about enduring. It was about resisting. It was about finding strength, even in the most broken places. In those people, I saw something that I hadn't seen in so long: possibility. The idea that life could still be more than just survival, that freedom wasn't something that could be taken away forever. It could be fought for, it could be earned. And that spark of hope, which had once seemed so small, now burned a little brighter in my chest. I wasn't alone anymore. I had people beside me who knew what it meant to fight. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for something more. A chance to find the family I had lost. A chance to reclaim the life that had been stolen from me. The journey would be long, and the road would be hard, but I wasn't afraid anymore, because now I knew I wasn't walking it alone. As I stood with these new faces, these fellow survivors, I felt something shift inside of me. It wasn't just the hunger that gnawed at my bones or the constant ache of loss that weighed on my heart. It was something deeper, something that had been dormant within me for so long. It had almost been forgotten. It was the spark of rebellion, the fire of defiance, burning slowly inside my chest. I didn't know exactly when it started, but I knew it was there. It was the same feeling that had kept me going through the darkest days, to believe that I had a right to live, to be free, to have a life that wasn't dictated by cruelty. The others, though broken and scarred, had taught me that survival wasn't enough. We weren't just meant to exist in this world. We were meant to fight for the future. Every day, they showed me how to survive, how to keep moving forward despite the odds, and each day, I grew stronger. I learned to hold my head high, even when my body screamed for rest. I learned to take back what had been stolen from me, piece by piece. The work was grueling, the journey exhausting, but something within me refused to give up. I could hear my mother's voice in my head, reminding me of the strength that ran through my veins. "You are the child of strong people," she had said, and in that moment, I understood what she meant. She wasn't just talking about physical strength. She was talking about the strength of the spirit, the resilience of the soul. It was a strength that had been passed down through generations of suffering, a strength that no one could take away. I had felt that strength when I was a boy, in the arms of my mother, in the quiet moments of our home. But now, it was the very thing that kept me standing, that kept me moving forward when the world seemed to have abandoned me. Each day was a battle, not just against the physical hardships, but against the despair that threatened to overtake me. But with every step, I felt myself becoming more than just a victim of circumstance. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming something else. I was becoming a fighter. The fire within me grew stronger with each passing day, and with it, a new purpose began to take shape. I wasn't just fighting for survival. I was fighting for the future of my people, for the generations who would come after me. For my family, though they were gone, their memory lived on in me. In every breath I took, in every action I made, I owed it to them to fight. I owed it to myself to live with purpose. And I couldn't do that if I just stayed silent, if I just kept my head down, and accepted the cruelty of the world as my fate, I had to stand up. I had to rise. But standing up meant something more than just finding my own freedom. It meant finding the strength to help others find theirs. It meant giving them hope, even when I had so little of it left. It meant showing them that we could still fight back, that we could still take control of our lives, no matter how broken we were. And so, I began to speak, slowly at first, but with growing conviction. I told them about the strength I had found in myself, the same strength I had inherited from my mother and father. I told them about the fire within me that had refused to go out, no matter how much the world tried to snuff it out. I told them that we could still win, even when it seemed impossible. And when I spoke, they listened. They saw the truth in my eyes, the fire in my heart, and one by one, they began to believe it too. We began to form a community, a group of people who were no longer willing to accept the chains that bound us. We were no longer just survivors, we were fighters. And though the road ahead was uncertain, though the dangers we faced were real, I knew that we were ready, because now, we had something we hadn't had before: hope. And with that hope, we had everything we needed to change the world. It's strange how the soul can break and yet still survive. How, even after everything is stripped away, you can rebuild yourself piece by piece. After all the loss, after the pain, I had finally found a new way of living. But it wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about carrying forward the strength of those who came before me, the love they gave, and the sacrifices they made. The battle for freedom didn't end the day I walked away from that field. It didn't end when I found the strength to speak, to fight back. It only began with each person I met along the way, each new ally. I saw what I had never fully realized before. We were stronger together. What had once felt like the weight of the world on my shoulders began to feel like shared responsibility, shared hope as we fought together. As we struggled through the long nights and the days that felt endless, we began to reclaim more than just our physical freedom. We began to reclaim our dignity, our humanity, and in doing so, we built something that could never be taken away, a legacy of resilience. It was a legacy that was passed down to me by my mother, my father, and all those who had gone before me. It was the legacy of strength, of standing tall in the face of unimaginable pain, of refusing to let the world define us. The world would never be the same again for me, not after all that I had witnessed, not after everything I had lost, but I had learned something invaluable along the way. No matter how broken we are, no matter how far the road stretches ahead, we have the power to rebuild. We have the power to change the world. And with that power comes the responsibility to fight for the future. For those who will come after us, the future will always be uncertain. But one thing I know for sure is that we are capable of more than we ever thought possible. We are capable of transforming our pain into strength and our struggles into triumphs. And as I walk this path, I carry the memories of my family with me, of their love, their strength, their resilience. They didn't just live in the moments we shared together. They live in me, in every step I take, in every breath I draw. And now, I pass on their legacy, their story, to you. May it give you the strength to carry forward your own. If you feel this journey in your heart, if this story has touched something deep inside you, then I ask you, please, stay with me. There is more to this story, more to be shared. Subscribe, and let's walk this path together, one story at a time. I carry the memories of my people with me, and now I pass them on to you.